Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Just tell you brief about our business school. So our parent institution is Vivekananda Institute of Professional Studies that was started by Dr. S.C. Vats in year 2000. Our programs on LLB, LLM, BBA, BJMC, that is journalism and mass communication, BCA and MCA, these are the most sought after programs in IP University. So in fact, we get top rankers in most of these programs in the university. And in year 2012, Dr. S.C. Vats conceptualized the idea of a business school in this part of the uh, town to impart quality management education. So we started our admissions in year 2013, and this was actually the time when many business schools were actually closing down. So that's the time when he thought that let's have some business school which actually imparts that kind of education to students, which actually helps them in their when they actually join industry. Delhi School of Business has been in existence for last 8 years, and our PGDM program is NBA accredited as well as it is equivalent with MBA. This equivalence is from Association of Indian Universities. Particular webinar is the course of marketing management, where students have learned about business marketing, products and services, pricing, promotion, and certain developments in marketing. So for this, students have already discussed some of the articles, some of the latest articles which are actually written in different research papers. Now, to supplement their understanding, we wanted to have a real life experience from from an industry expert, and that is the reason why we have today with us Mr. Abhay Bhargav, who has extensive experience in energy sector. Abhay Bhargav has worked in companies like Infosys, Accenture, and Shell. Uh, he has now worked in energy sector for more than 10 years now. Now, without going into more details, I'll now hand over to Abhay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing fine in these times of Corona. Um, so, as Sharad mentioned, my name is Abhay Bhargava, and today I'm going to try and experience in the energy sector. But I also have got experience from other sectors like financial services, telecoms, etc. Um, am I audible? And can you see the screen that I'm trying to share?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, don't call me sir. I'm not used to that, so call me Abhay. Um, so my own background to begin with, and please jump in whenever you need to. Probably, I don't promise that I'll be having all answers, but we'll try to provide my own view or perspective. Yeah. So in terms of education, I'm basically from the same college as Dr. Sharad here. Did my chemical engineering from IIT BHU. Then I've also done a condensed MBA, which is Executive Leadership Program from Oxford University, from Side Business School. In terms of my own experience, as Sharad mentioned, I started my career with Infosys, worked primarily in financial services, telecoms, aviation sector, then moved to Accenture. From a location perspective, for last 18 years or something like that, I've been based out of UK, or you can call it UK and Europe, basically. Um, then from Accenture, I moved to Shell, um, and I'm also a trustee in a local charity called Home Start, which deals with families and people in distress. And we try to help those families locally in South London. In terms of Shell, my background, I think within Shell as an oil company has been in the digital space, primarily in marketing, but also in various other places. And in terms of line of business, it is what is known as downstream in Shell, which is when after the distillation of crude oil has happened, what you get out of that, that's what is called a part of downstream business. So selling products like fuels, chemicals, all sorts of catalysts, etc. Yeah. So that's my background. Please tell me if I'm going too fast, and I'll slow down. Yeah. In terms of current scenario, I think as everyone is aware of where we are, as it is in usually in sort of business environment or corporate environment, you do have challenges and try to overcome them and make money out of selling services, products to customers, and as part of that, marketing that. But in current climate, I think some of the additional aspects have kicked in, where of course Corona has brought its own challenges, but also opportunities in some cases, by the way. Different types of competition has sprung up, where companies that were never considered a competition in a particular sector have also crept in. And then I think there is a lot of political angle associated to all of it, where lobbying happens in different governments. And in my own role, I also deal with some of that, wherein you have to ensure that what you are doing is not just making money, but is also competitive from an environment, safety, perception towards common customer, and things like that. So how do we deal with these challenges? I'll try to cover some of that in next couple of slides, hopefully. And I want to make it as interactive as possible. So please, when we go through the topics at hand, please jump in with any of your examples or scenarios or questions. Yeah, I'm sure everyone knows what marketing is in your own world, in the education sector, what you've been taught by Dr. Sharad and others. But from a corporate perspective, what are we trying to do with marketing? Usually, you start off from understanding the market, customer needs, yeah, research. And that's very important. I think if I compare it to 10, 11 years ago when I moved into this space, a lot of it was driven by I am representing a line of business in a company. It could be a person or a group of people, and they would provide the requirements to the marketing analysts and those people. But nowadays, I think talking directly to the customer is the primary thing. Unless the customer wants it, don't do it, I think is the simple mantra used. And then I think you create a bit of a message. Previously, of course, I mean, as the image sort of tries to portray, it was very much direct marketing using traditional tools. But nowadays, I think social media, digital has helping cost, but also reaching out to many folks who we could not previously. Then you have your own campaign, and then probably the rest of it is pretty much around getting messages and benchmarking your performance against either industry standards, your own past performance, etc. Then hopefully you reach your target, and then the cycle continues. And it's an iterative process, so you keep improving yourself as you go along. And for each step of the process, I think one thing is very, very important to highlight is that the line between what was known as traditional marketing of I will reach out to customers, relay the message, and then it will be someone else's problem, like your IT department or other people in sales, etc., to deal with other aspects of product or service that you are trying to sell. So that line is fading away. So I think understanding some of these things is very, very important as a marketeer or as a person who deals with the brand image of your company, product, service, whatever you are trying to sell to your customer. And also, I think identifying who your customer is as part of that. An interesting example there, where someone who you think is a B2B customer. So let's say you have got an engagement with another company where they are doing business with you. So you're trying to sell some services or products to that company. And let's say they take your products, which may be physical products, using lorries or vans. Yeah. So those van drivers could be your B2B stakeholders or customers during the day. but in the evening, they could be visiting your shop and buying services or products from that, and they would be B2C customers. So treating a person from different angles and different scenarios as different customers is equally important. So some of these angles, I think, are becoming increasingly complex, but also interesting from making money, but also addressing their needs in the right way, in a timely fashion as well. Yeah. Any questions, comments on this one before we go a little bit deeper? Okay. And this is, I think, the reason why I pulled out this user research aspect separately is that it is so important in current climate, more so than I would say previously, that I think it needs uh, pretty much an important focus and attention from your own perspective. Maybe I should probably ask a question here because no one else has asked a question. How involved have you guys been on about user research, and have you done it yourself? Anyone? And don't hesitate. I mean, there is no wrong answer here, guys. If you haven't done it, no problems.
Sir, are you talking about consumer research as in user research?
Yeah, so well, you're calling it consumer research. It could be any user who ends up being a consumer. Yes, so consumer research could be one area. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we are currently we have done it in Presto as well, and we are also currently doing it in our Capstone. So yes, we are pretty much aware of this.
Oh, you are aware of it. Okay, excellent. So I think in terms of user research and what it does is that the main thing is what is the pain point? What are you trying to solve for that customer? And I can share a couple of examples from my own background perspective that things that we thought are pain points or customer problems from our perspective. Actually, the customer probably cared least about those areas, and the things that the customer wanted from us as a company or as a group. In current climate, I think some of these things we previously didn't think as a problem area to be solved by an oil company. I think people want, for example, I think uh, since probably last couple of years, an area that has come up heavily, especially in Europe, but I'm pretty sure in India as well, that people want to understand their carbon footprint. If they are burning fuel, if they are flying, for example, Shell Aviation is involved a lot where we supply fuel to aircrafts. So people want to understand how much carbon footprint have they had, and can they offset it by donating a little bit of money to plant trees, as an example, which was not a business unit in the company previously, but now we have a business unit that deals with carbon offsetting, and it's huge. And I think the customer small line item in your receipt, customer receipt. I'm talking about B2C customers, but B2B also have that, where it said that your carbon footprint was this, and if you had donated this much money, you could plant trees or whatever. Yeah. But nowadays, customer actually want to look at it prominently, so that has changed. The receipt itself has changed, as an example, and the marketing of the company is influenced by this, wherein previously the focus was very much on selling fuel, whether it was aviation or for car or whatever. It has now gone down to, okay, you are traveling, so whether you have to fly or you have to travel by car, van, etc., but you are trying to offset that by going green. So that's the type of customer pain point, and then you figure out the usability aspects of that, and understand the evolving customer needs as well. So it's not, again, I think similar to everything else nowadays. None of this is a one-time activity. You do that, you launch something, and then you realize that, okay, the customer needs are changing or evolving. and then you change the model that you deal with the customer with. Yeah. And also the goals of customers changed. I mean, for example, right now, not many people are driving because of Corona. So most people are working from home or whatever. That means that their carbon footprint from driving the car or going, but from your home energy perspective, you're burning more electricity, gas, etc. So that is playing a role where Shell is also involved in home energy sector. We supply electricity and gas to households as well in UK and Europe, rest of Europe. And from that perspective, understanding how to be more energy efficient has become important for customers, wherein they want to understand. For example, we use a lot of heating inside the homes here as a customer. And now people want to know how to be efficient whilst burning gas as part of heating the home. These are the types of things that user research helps the companies and also the customers to understand where that brand is going. So I would recommend, if no, if you haven't looked into that space of user research and how it helps, focus on that, and happy to answer any questions as well on that topic, yeah, as we go along. I think one topic that I should also add here is a topic of accessibility. Does anyone know what accessibility means? Again, feel free to answer, if even if it's wrong, no worries. I mean, no one is going to mark you on that.
So to get access of something.
Sorry,
So
I couldn't hear you.
To get access of something, accessibility in terms of, for example, if you talk about rural population, there are certain things which they are not like they cannot access it. So if something is accessible, then that is accessibility.
No, so accessibility is actually people who from a sort of ability perspective are hampered. So, for example, disabled people who either cannot read very well and stuff like that. Yeah. So catering to those kind of customers or stakeholders is considered very important these days. Very simple examples, like if you have a store, ensuring that wheelchair users can use your store. Previously, I think that was probably not necessarily at the forefront of most of the companies, but nowadays I think that is considered as a given by many customers, especially in the Western world. I'm pretty sure in India as well, this will come up if it hasn't. Wherein I think if you're not accessibility compliant, you're seen as someone who's discriminating. So again, from a marketing perspective, if you're not compliant, then I think it goes in the negative marketing category. Okay. So again, I think I'm good. Yeah, go on.
So, sir, are we talking about certain requirements which we need to fulfill? For example, whenever an institution has to be made, so there has to be a passage for wheelchairs and all those stuff.
As an example, yes, or let's say digital world. Yeah. So if you create a website, it should always has. I don't know if you guys have seen most of these websites from large, which if you click, the font becomes bigger.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
people can read it. Yeah. So in that sense, various angles are associated with it. If you have got blind customers, for example, ensuring that they are well catered to, they can press a button. Hearing aids are there where people can't hear anything. Then they have hearing aids in stores and stuff like that from a physical perspective. So things like that, I think it has to be addressed as part of your product or service launch from a marketing perspective. Yeah. Okay, then let's try going to the next slide. Right, so I have kept a number of slides to minimum. This does contain a lot of topics. I'm hoping that the left-hand image is very familiar and there are no surprises there, but let me know if there is a topic that someone says, oh, I don't know what that means. In the digital marketing blurb that it shows mobile, tablet, return on investment and stuff like that. Right. So please feel free to ask questions on that one if there are any. Yeah, sorry, someone was trying to say something.
So yeah, in fact, most of the students actually belong to first year,
Mhm.
and they may not be very well aware of some of the
Okay, then let me
concepts
go
in
through it.
digital
Yeah.
marketing.
Okay.
Okay,
So
yeah. So I mean, you can actually develop upon
yeah,
some of those
sure.
concepts.
Okay, no worries. So let me cover these. I think some of them will make total logical sense to you as a consumer, because everyone on their own are also a consumer for one thing or the other. So, but there are certain things that are only applicable from the other side, which is the seller or the company angle. Yeah. So let's go one by one. So from the top, let's say search engine optimization. Does anyone know what search engine optimization is? Yeah, go on.
Yes, sir. So whenever we optimize any sites with certain keywords which is likable to search, and people are searching it through relevant,
Yep.
then that is the search engine optimization.
Yeah, and then I think introducing current technology in terms of artificial intelligence, machine learning, then you ensure that you also have its mobile apps and all those places where it learns that, okay, people are more searching for the word shell or for Shell India, for example, than anything else. So let me ensure that whenever someone searches for Shell India, I provide the result rather than just for Shell, as an example. Yeah. But yeah, that's the right answer. You create videos that are, and I think these days it's also important to mention actually that creating long videos is a no-no. If your video length is more than 3 minutes, I think no one is going to watch it. So having videos that are less than 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes about the product, very punchy. Yeah. So ensuring that whatever you are trying to tell to your customers, stakeholders, end users, it needs to be precise, concise, and needs to be really quick for customer to catch. The messaging needs to be clear, and if you start going round and round, then that's it, I think. And stuff around ad campaigns and stuff, of course ads are costly, as you might very well know. So ensuring that you finish it up in 10 seconds and still the message is embedded in people's head, that's important. Yeah. And each of these, by the way, are a skill set and expertise in themselves. So, I mean, of course, I would recommend that as part of your MBA, go through each of these topics, but also figure out which area excites you or you like that, and get into it deeper. I mean, each of these is a job in itself, a career. Yeah. Ensuring that your products are accessible on mobile and tablet these days, and not just traditional websites, and also are mobile and tablet compliant. I think especially the real estate available to show information on mobile and tablet is not huge as compared to a desktop. Yeah. And the main thing from a business perspective, sitting on the other side in the corporate world, a return on investment. If you are not making money, then it's definitely not worth it. Yeah. So most of the large corporates are not here for charity. So from a marketing perspective, tracking how much money are you going to make, how much are you really making, where are the improvement areas, that's very important. This has traditionally been something that the marketeers would leave it to the finance team, sales team, some implementation team, someone else. So it was originally or previously, up until 10-15 years ago, was someone else's problem. These days understanding finances is very important as well. I'm sure in your MBA, I think you will cover the finance aspect as well. So understanding how return on investment works, how do you articulate benefits of a particular product service is very important, and then being able to track it. Then I think the other one is around the whole marketing aspect around it, using search engine to market yourself. So I'm sure everyone, whenever you have gone to a Google or Microsoft search using Bing, etc., or Yahoo search, there are certain results that come at the top, and then there is a word ad associated with them. That is search engine marketing. So people pay money to go the likes of Google, Yahoo, Microsoft to get their company website, product, or service at the top of everything else, irrespective of what word you have chosen, as long as it is in their domain. The top, there is a human tendency to click something that shows up pretty much at the top. And if people land on your website or portal, then the chances are that they might buy something. Yeah. Pay per click, I think again, that's a model that is used in digital marketing space where when you create a marketing campaign using Facebook, Twitter, whatever, people go in, and if they click the link which says that please visit this company's website to buy this service or product, for every click, you need to pay to that particular provider. So it could be Facebook that gets money. And it also has, again, I think it's a career in itself where you can have very complex models which says that I'll only pay 10 cents or 10 pence per click. But if it results in a valid purchase, then I might pay you a pound or a dollar or whatever, or a percentage of your sale. Yeah. Um, Behind everything that you do, of course, you need to first start with the content. Yeah. So what is the content that will be part of all of these methods? Like we were discussing about search engine optimization. What are the keywords? Search engine marketing, like which domains or areas do we want to tackle when we pay a Google or a Microsoft? Yeah. So that kind of content has to be created. And of course, I think the last but not the least, which is, I think, favorite of everyone these days, is social media. Anything and everything that you interact with using digital channels, starting from WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, and so on and so forth, LinkedIn, everywhere. I think people are trying to use the channels in terms of human interaction. And all the areas, I'm hoping I haven't gone too fast. And if there are questions on any of those, happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'm going to go to a few aspects that I would suggest you guys to focus on in due course, and will probably share some of the examples from my own experience. So, for example, we are moving from traditional ways to digital, as you can see, and we just discussed. And that brings its own challenges. Like everything else in this world, there are good guys and there are bad guys. In digital space, those bad guys are called hackers. They come in and they literally damage your brand reputation. I'm sure people have read news where people's data, customers' data was stolen. Data breach has happened in the past. Yeah. And that means that your own brand image takes a serious hit, because then people stop trusting that, okay, I mean, my data can get stolen. People's credit card details, etc., have been stolen in the past, and that just generates a very negative brand image from a marketing perspective. Like I mentioned previously, the lines between business and IT are changing and fading away. I think you guys are in an MBA course, so previously, if you would have done an MBA maybe 20 years ago or something like that, then it was IT was someone else's problem. But nowadays, if you don't understand it, it will be hard to survive, because people expect you to know and to be a much more IT savvy than they previously expected you to be. Even if I mentioned that each of these are a career in itself, there is an expectation, because they are all linked, by the way. Yeah. So it all ends up in this bucket, which is return on investment. And there is a bigger bucket, which is called brand image, that also has to be covered by all of these. So unless you have a good understanding of every aspect around around marketing and digital marketing in today's world. There will be struggle. You will feel that, okay, I'm not able to achieve optimal results, appropriate results, unless I know everything that is there to know in all of these areas. How do you measure success is very important, which is key performance indicators. Is it about sales? Is it about selling services or products? Is it about generating more business? So what is success for you? Yeah, and from a marketing perspective, is the current goal only about generating revenues, or is it about reaching out far and in depth beyond what the current reach is? How are your competitors doing? What are they doing? Yeah, so having a good study of competitors is equally important, like everything else here. How are you tracking all of this? Yeah, so previously, I think again, it was a little bit chaotic. People would track things on a sheet of paper and stuff. With digital coming in, everything in cloud. I mean, I'm sure even in your course, you are using everything in cloud there, and Google Sheets and all sorts of things. That is required in corporate world as well, with much more security associated with it, because you don't want your competitors to know that you're launching a new product in 6 weeks time. Yeah. A topic that I think is becoming increasingly important and is a serious one is data privacy. Have you guys heard of GDPR and what that means? Anyone? So GDPR is a regulation.
I think
yeah,
so,
go on.
So I think GDPR is a kind of agreement with the with the website, so that we can, so that they can collect our data on the basis of our agreements.
Right. So let me, yeah. So it is from a consumer perspective, yes, but from the corporate angle and what the law is about, it's general. It's called General Data Privacy Regulation from European Union. Although I think pretty much the entire globe is adhering to it. And what it says is that I, as a person, as a consumer, have every right of ensuring that my data, my personal information, and there are, I mean, it's a whole field in itself around, and I've done extensive work in GDPR as well in the past, wherein personal data, and there are categories of personal data you have control over, right? So if a company is collecting information, and like you said, I think it was Parth who said that, wherein if a Vaibhav, yeah. So it was around a website collecting your information. Then you have every right to go back to that company to say, what are you doing with my information? Yeah. Are they selling it to someone else? Or are they using it to track your purchases? Are they tracking it from a CRM, the customer relationship management perspective? Which is around ensuring that my buying behavior is tracked. And then based on that, I get, I'm sure everyone has experienced that on Facebook and several other places where based on what you do, it starts showing up content differently, right? Ads are shown to people based on what you are doing. And all that is relevant to data privacy angle, yeah. And if I think the reason GDPR by law, if you are, especially if you are doing business in European Union and also for now in UK, if you are found to be breaching the customer trust and also playing with their data, let's call it, in the manner that they did not agree with you, it means that the company can be fined, and the fine is 4% of your global revenue. Which sounds like not a lot of money, is it? But if your global revenue is $400 billion, then you can make the maths very, very quickly. $16 billion is one-time fine. And the number of times you make the the mistake many times. So it's a huge area. Again, GDPR as an expertise is a great career to have. If you do like to get involved in that space, I think marketing and data privacy, again, the line is fading, and ensuring that your data privacy of customers is managed properly. That's a huge area, yeah. And overarching thing for which every big business, especially, and also small ones, um, could do anything literally to keep it right and clean in customers' image is the brand image. If your brand image is not there, people do not trust you, then I think you have a serious problem. I think it's like banking. You put your money, hard-earned money, into a bank. I mean, that's because you trust the bank that it's not going to run away with your money, yeah. And you also have a trust that there are other regulations, like in India, you've got RBI and others who will keep the bank in check, just so that they don't start doing frauds with your money. And then security around everything, where I mentioned earlier that hackers are there. Similarly, I think from a marketing perspective, the other security aspect is, as I mentioned earlier as well, that your customers, your competitors, getting a wind of the fact that you are launching a new, exciting, innovative product. I think electric vehicles is one, right? So these days, where a lot of companies are launching it. What if you have cracked a big problem of charging electric vehicles? You don't want your competitors and other people to know before you launch it, and then steal the idea and then launch it as their own, yeah. So that's a huge thing from a marketing perspective, keeping it all tight within the house. I worked in insurance sector as well, where also launching a new insurance product, you want to ensure that the attributes of that insurance are not shared with anyone but within the organization. Marketing, I mean, I think from sort of doing the MBA perspective right now and getting into all these areas, and having opportunity even right now, we are using Zoom to have a chat. I think pretty much everyone is based somewhere else, which was not possible a few years ago. So yeah, take advantage, I would say. So that's pretty much it, what I wanted to say. Happy to take any questions, any conversation that people want to have.
So, I want to ask you a question that how is SEO different from SEM, or are these both from the same domain?
No, so there are two different topics, and I mean, you will probably have two different people doing these things. There are two different careers, really, usually. So search engine optimize. What you want to do is, and it's not only related to websites. I mean, mobile apps also have this, yeah, where you want keywords to be used when someone is searching on a particular topic. Let's say if I'm talking about energy sector, someone wants to search on premium brand fuels. So instead of just going and buying petrol or diesel, they want to buy premium brand fuels because they've got a Ferrari or something like that, yeah. So you want your company's portal or website to show up at the top when that happens, but you are not paying anything for that. This is just ensuring that that keyword gets entered in the search engine, whether it shows up, yeah. Or in case of App Store, Play Store, if someone wants to look at, let's say, insurance companies, then your company comes up in the top 3 or 5 or whatever. Whilst the SEM area is more around paying money to be shown at the top, irrespective of the keywords and stuff like that. So in the sequence of how it will show on a search engine is SEM websites will be shown first, and then the good search engine optimization portals will be shown second. Does that help?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Any other questions?
Yes,
So
sir. I have
one more question. Can we use PPC in place of SEM? Because I think these are from use PPC in place of SEM? Because I think these both are from the same domain.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Okay.
Someone else was saying something.
I was saying.
Manira. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So there are times that some organizations and startups are trying to monetize their websites. So they are using these newsletter and blogs thing, and they actually send them on email. So, sir, how likely you think that these emails are relevant? Because what I have seen that I get some emails, so I don't directly go to that website, and that is not helping anymore.
Yep.
According to my point of view. So,
Yep.
sir,
It's actually so it's actually it has gone other way around these days. So the people I mentioned, the hackers, they have actually turned it 180 degrees from what it was. See, nowadays, and I'm sure everyone will agree with this, nowadays when you receive an email from anyone, including your friends and family, if there is a link in it, you think at least 5 times before you click it. So if you are sending a marketing email, the chances of someone clicking a link are next to zero now, unless of course someone does that either deliberately by not knowing it, or they are not necessarily aware of the fraud scenarios that are out there. But then I think the chances of them buying your product are not high either. They've just clicked it without understanding the context there. Yeah. So I think your concern is valid, which is that email based marketing is going downhill, because how do you direct the customer from an email to your website or mobile app or something like that? Very difficult. I think these days using a Facebook and other things is a little bit better. Equally, I think, and this might sound a bit counterintuitive, but ensuring that your product is used well by first few customers and they become your brand ambassadors. That's the biggest thing. Some of the other ways and means, I think, that are pay per click, I think I mentioned. Also, stuff like where somehow you can embed it in a trusted source. So let me give you an example. So for example, if you send an email from Yahoo from your phone, yeah, there is always something that is at the bottom which says email sent using Android Yahoo app or something like that. That's the type of thing you want for your or in a trusted portal, a trusted app, or something like that. So anyone who sends who receives an email saying I don't know, do not reply at xyz.com, I doubt you will click that. Does that cover the question, Manira?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problems. Anyone else?
Sir, I have a question, Sanchit this side.
Mhm.
Sir, I'd like to know that is there any way to get rid of that fake emails, and there is some symbols which tells us that these emails or links are fake?
From a user perspective, you mean?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I think it's very tricky, to be honest. See, one thing that actually, now that you've asked that question, you've raised a very good point as well. In my head, I'm thinking that I should have mentioned it earlier. The good guys are always 1 or 2 steps behind bad guys, always. So to find out that this email is coming from a fraudulent unit or company or a person is very, very hard. Google, Yahoo, all these guys are trying to put your emails into spam and junk folders by trying to run artificial intelligence on it. Yeah. Which also is a big area from a marketing perspective. AI is a huge area which you guys should also read about and learn. Even if I'm not asking you to become artificial intelligence developers, but having a clear awareness of what AI and machine learning can do for you is very, very important. So some of that is done by your email provider. But is there a way where you can clean email from Dr. Sharad and only trusted people? No. Not going to happen. The bad guys are always one step ahead of everyone else, at least. But I think based on your question, I would recommend you guys reading about AI and machine learning. Yeah. Does that help, Sanchit?
Yes, sir. It helps. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
No problems.
So I have one question.
Yep.
It's related to the marketing only, but I wanted to know that in this current pandemic situation, like what is the best strategy a startup could adapt to market their products with minimal cost? Because it's a tough situation for every organization. So what would be the best strategy for them?
I think, see, again, following the money, I would call it. Try as much as you can not to spend money on traditional marketing means. So let me go extreme in that, where I think traditionally big billboards were considered huge marketing aspect. Yeah. So you would put out a big billboard in the center of city or town, wherever you are living, or towns if you are in if you're trying to market it in multiple places, and that had huge cost. A startup, of course, cannot afford it and should not go down that route. Try to use as many social media and social interaction channels where you don't have to pay for it. Also, whenever you get customers who become your use, see, for a startup, the first and foremost problem is getting the first set of customers. And that's tricky. Yeah. So your product or service has to be brilliant for someone to say, right, I'm going to part with some money here. Now, if you can't do that, or if your product or service cannot be sold easily to the first set of customers, the other aspect is that instead of spending money on ad campaigns and stuff like that, you probably give out free vouchers or discounted service to initial customers. But then I think the aspect that you need to carefully manage is those customers need to become your brand ambassadors. So the way to do that is that, of course, I mean, it goes without saying that your product or service has to do what it says on the tin and a bit more. Yeah. If it doesn't, then yeah, I mean, marketing goes down the toilet very quickly, as they call it. But if it does well, the product or service is doing well, your startup has cracked an innovation or an idea, then ensure that those customers, they reach out to their friends, and a bit of a word of mouth in that sense happens. Equally, I think people posting it on their LinkedIn, I mean, depending on what product or service you are talking about, LinkedIn page, Facebook, and all the other places. It helps immensely. Twitter. And then once you have generated some revenue, then go down the paid media route where you could pay, for example, SEM, you can go down that route and get your company's portal or website at the top. But do not do that in the beginning is what I would suggest. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problems. Anyone else?
May I?
Yeah, sure.
So actually, it's a bit. I won't say that it's very related to what we have just discussed, but I just want to know that, do you think as a fresher, like I don't have any work experience apart from internship, so as a fresher, due to this COVID thing, like our placements and everything will hamper, because I know our college will get us good placements, but then do you think that the courses like the Coursera courses and everything and short internships will help, because we are a fresher, right? We are not having any work experience, so
yeah. So
I'm
I think
really,
yeah,
I'm really
don't worry.
scared at this point, because obviously companies are going into bad debts and everything. So
See,
you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. So two things. So one, all of us would have at some point zero experience.
Right.
So we were all in college, and I think from I can say from the industry or corporate perspective, everyone understands that. Yeah. So and there is I think one thing that and I was in your shoes at some point a few years ago, wherein as a student, you do not realize that you are bringing a fresh blood into the mix,
Right, sir.
and fresh ideas, which I think after working for a few years, 10, 20, 30 years, that starts fading away. Yeah, so people start feeling that, okay, I need someone who comes in with fresh ideas, make changes, um, come up with ideas that may sound awkward, drastic, maybe at some points weird for now. Yeah. But that's what I think people want to bring into their organization. So in that sense, yes, every company needs and wants fresh graduates coming in and helping to grow the organization in a different direction in the current climate. Also, the other aspect is that the people who are now going to be graduating will become buyers, consumers in a few years' time. Once, of course, you guys have had a few years of your own career experience and stuff like that, families and stuff will come in, and then you will be a consumer. So who is better placed to understand consumer behavior than the consumer themselves? So you will be a consumer who will be in the corporate world trying to solve problems for your peers, i.e. other consumers. So in that sense, I think I wouldn't say that you should worry about it. Of course, there is a late place. The nervousness is also on the company side, where if they don't get good employees,
Yeah, good
then I
talent,
think
talent.
yeah, good talent. Yeah, so then I think you've got the problem on both sides. So the need is on both sides. In the current pandemic world, you are right. I guess there is an element of certain companies facing a lot of stress and trouble. But equally, I think look at it from the other side as well. If a company has survived the current pandemic, then surely there is a lot of good stuff going in that company, and that is the company worth pursuing from your perspective. And they will, of course, if they are resilient, yeah, in current times. How did they evolve themselves? I think one thing that I would suggest you guys doing, now that you've asked this question, is figure out the companies that have changed or adapted in current climate, rather than just by shredding employees. So laying off employees is not the answer. Yeah. How did they ensure that they remain competitive? Did they get into a new sector? So I'll tell you some examples from Shell, for example, where recently in last couple of years, more so in last year than the year before, and this year as well, we have delved into a few sectors that I think if you had asked me 10, 11 years ago, I wouldn't even have dreamt or imagined that we could get into. So stuff like, for example, electric charging. We have bought certain companies, startups, who are into electric charging. The other area is, I think I mentioned earlier that home energy. Shell was never into home energy. We have delved into that and bought companies or even initiated our own departments to do that. So to ensure that we remain competitive, you need to come out of, okay, I'm an oil company. People are not buying oil. What do I do now? And instead of worrying about it, what is the company trying to do to come out of that situation? Yeah, that's what I would suggest, that look at different large corporates, medium and small sized ones, and see how are they operating right now. Are they launching new products? And what are they doing about the current climate? Yeah. And Zoom is an example as well, by the way. It has, I don't think many people would have heard about Zoom before last year too much. But here we are in a call on Zoom.
Yes, sir. Agreed. Thank you for such a positive energy.
No problems. And I would recommend, I mean, of course,
it's such a relief.
Yeah, no issues.
I was really scared. I really wanted to ask this question because of all this pandemic and everything, that
no.
What will happen afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, as the British say here, it can only go upwards from here. Yeah. So.
True. So one more question.
Yeah, sure.
According to you, for us, like for me as a fresher, should I go, like there are two options. One is I should prefer the salary, the pay part, how the company is paying me, and the second one is the name of the company, the goodwill of the company.
Yep.
So what do you think? Like as a fresher, I should concentrate on the name of the company, like yeah, okay, I'm working in Google, like for example.
There is a third aspect, I would say, and the balance needs to be there between the three of them. The third aspect is not necessarily the large company, and of course, Google is a bad example of that. It is a large one and a good one at that.
I know,
But
I
not
know, I know.
necessarily. No. So the third aspect is very important, which is what is it exactly that you are going to do in that organization, and what difference is it making to your beliefs. So, for example, do you believe that you want to make a difference to people's lives as an employee, as a professional, or do you believe that you want to make a difference to that organization, as an example? Yeah. So what is it that excites you, and does that company delve into that space? These days, a lot of employees do not want to work in companies that are damaging either the environment or have got a bit of a weird collaboration with governments, let's say. So certain people do not work in that space because they don't believe in that. Yeah, does that help?
Yeah, I am understanding what you're saying. Actually, you know what? It's such a mixed feeling right now, like mixture of thoughts and whether we should be like happy that okay, we are going to enter in the corporate world, or we should be sad. We should be like okay, we are freshers. Because even in my class, I have like all my friends are having some of the other work experience, like 2 years, 3 years, and I'm like okay, I'm a fresher.
No,
So, yeah.
I wouldn't worry to a single bit. As long as dedication, a bit of see, the main thing about all of this is attitude, and a little bit of nervousness is actually good.
Yeah, right. It
Yeah.
actually tells that okay, you are concerned about your career.
Yeah, and then that's when you will start thinking about options. If you don't
Right.
have nervousness, then there is either an arrogance or overconfidence or whatever you want to call it, which is never good. Yeah,
Right.
never good.
Agreed, sir. Agreed. Thank you so much, sir, for such positive energy and kind gesture.
No problem.
Thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sir, do the ads which are being skipped on like Instagram or YouTube, are they tracked?
Mostly yes. And that's where the pay-per-click aspect kicks in. Yeah, so that's where people track till what point in the journey the customer has gone. And there is another field actually associated with this within the analytics space, where also a lot of marketing people delve into these days, which was previously considered more an IT thing, but not anymore. Is around analyzing why are the customers going up until third last step or second last step, but not really actually buying my product or service. Is there something? And I mean, sometimes what you will find, to give you some examples from past, you will find that the journey for a customer to click through from a Facebook or whatever and end up at your portal and then buying the service, if there are more than 3 or 4 steps, the customer drops off. It doesn't matter what product or service you are selling. They might not even read about it because there are too many clicks. Or if you are asking for probably their entire biodata to be name, surname, email, address, all sorts of things, even before they bought something, that's when the customer drops off. These days, I think the resistance to buy anything needs to be almost zero. Does that help?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problems.
Well, there's one question in the chat box. It is asking, what are some common digital marketing mistakes that businesses are making these days?
I think one thing that we covered earlier, which was around the startup question, spending more money than needed to market your product. The second one is, and it's a term, I don't know if people are familiar with it. It's what is known as minimum viable product. Do you guys know what MVP is? I think that's very important from a marketing perspective to understand what is the minimum product or service that you need to launch that serves customer needs. And from a marketing perspective, the marketeers, I think they want to make everything perfect, but launch it like yesterday. And that doesn't work ever. Yeah. So ensuring that you launch a product that serves the customer needs, but only I would call it appropriately rather than going over the top, and then come out of it and then evolve as you go along. So it's an iterative process. I think these days also the customers expect a product to come in and then improve as they go along. So from a mistake perspective, making a mistake of spending too much money in marketing the product, or even allowing the company to make the product and go beyond the extent of being viable, that's the bigger mistake. And then I think all the things that you see on this slide, ensuring that you use them at the optimal time. So for example, I think don't start rushing into SEM. Don't start creating too many mobile apps and websites if you can probably live with 1 or 2 pages of a portal, yeah, and make it mobile friendly. Don't create an app, as an example. Then I think if you come to pay per click, do you really have to start spending money with Facebook, Twitter, etc., or can you live without it? Does just having search engine optimization done well serve your purpose? Creating a few videos, is that enough without spending too much money? Yeah, that's the mistake that people make without generating revenue, spending money.
So one question.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see marketing changing in, let's say, next 1 or 2 years, especially because of the impact of this pandemic?
Yep. I think it's first of all, it's people are realizing that the whole work from home, remote is not going away. So how do you ensure that if I'm not going to come to your store too much, I'm only going to go online and buy stuff and get it delivered to my home? How do you ensure that I know that you have launched a new product or service? And in the sort of, I would say, sea of messaging, and I think someone mentioned earlier around email marketing and those kind of things, people get so many messages through WhatsApp, Facebook, email, and all sorts of things. How do you ensure that you are prominent in customer eyes is tricky. And building the brand trust, I think, is very, very important. And doing things that people do not expect you to do is equally critical these days. In fact, not more than anything else. I think if you can do certain things, so stuff like I gave the example of decarbonization and carbon offsetting. If customers are concerned about that aspect, so first identifying, for example, if you are dealing with customers in India, what is it that people feel really passionately about? And even if you are not into that business, can you address that and then link it to your business? So for example, Shell was never into carbon offsetting, but now people do expect us to do that related to the product we are selling. And that's the kind of stuff that will come up in next 1 or 2 years from a marketing and that kind of world. Yeah. And then digitally savvy, I think, as we mentioned, and everyone sort of agrees to that as well.
One last question, okay, before
Yeah,
we
sure.
close. So how should our MBA students prepare for this fast-changing world? Especially because of the uncertainty due to COVID-19.
Yeah, so I think there are a few things. One is see if we can, or you can have corporate engagements where even if people are doing small assignments for corporate world, you can do that. Get feel for the real thing, I would say. Yeah, if that is possible. I don't know if it is possible in your institute. Then the other one I would say is probably, and I don't know, I mean, how much of awareness is there, but there are certain websites or portals which let you, I think people per hour comes to mind, but there are several others like that, which pays people to do the work on an hourly basis. And there you get experience. So, and by the way, I mean, that's fairly serious work where you sign a contract that you will deliver ABC, whatever that ABC is, in X number of hours. You bid for the work, and then if you win the work, I would suggest everyone to visit websites like that. Take some experience from there, yeah. And even if you quote very little money as compared to everyone else, let's say everyone is quoting $100 or whatever, and if you quote 50, 10 or something, do the work, get an experience, get a feel for, and by the way, that is a trusted kind of network where the middleman, like that company that has got this portal, like People Per Hour and others, they ensure that if you do the work well, you do get paid. So it's not like someone will cheat you out of that work. Yeah. That kind of experience, I think, will be good, which you can do from your home. Because in current climate, I think going to a corporate and doing work is going to be rather tricky. And then as soon as the climate opens up and you can reach a company office and stuff like that, then probably trying to have some apprenticeships, etc., will be good as well. Does that help?
Yeah, certainly. I think that gives us some pointers, and I'm sure that all of at least the first year students who are not now going into second year I think they will get the pointers and they will try and do some real projects with industry. As in fact, some of our second year students have actually done small projects with industry people, and probably they are definitely in a better position, in terms of their CV. So I think that is something really helpful.
Okay, perfect.
So I think with that, we'll close this session. I really thank you for taking out time from your schedule and tell our students some of the latest developments in marketing, especially because of the pandemic. And you actually told some of the very important things, like how IT and MBA are these days very interlinked. Which did not used to happen maybe even some 20 years back.
Yep.
You also dwell upon how AI and machine learning are so important for marketing these days. And thanks a lot for giving advice to our MBA students by giving a new perspective to their thinking. And things like a minimum viable product. So those are the things which are actually important, especially for especially when we look at new product introductions. So that's where a company actually has to do something, rather than finding out a perfect product. And your advice on building the experience on your CV was, I think, very, very valuable. That people should try and get some small, but some real experience on the CVs, even if it is on hourly basis work. At least they will have something on their CV. I think these are some of the very practical ways how people can actually improve their CV and prepare well for the pandemic-induced marketing, I would say. So thanks for taking out your time. On behalf of Delhi School of Business, it was a great session. We have got the insights from from the industry expert. Do we have any other question? Anybody? Well, let's close it. I think now it's actually time. Thank you, Abhay. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and good luck with your career and education.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.